Jumping without a parachute is usually not a good idea, but here are 3 lucky persons who did just that and survived to tell the tale. Number 3. Nicholas Alkemade, RAF, 1944, from 5,500 meters. Nicholas was a tail gunner in a Lancaster bomber nicknamed Werewolf. On the 24th of March 1944, they were taking part in a bombing run against Berlin. On the way home, a heavier crosswind than expected made the plane drift south towards the Ruhr, which was heavily defended by the Germans. Oberleutnant Heinz Röcker in a Ju-88 Night Fighter spotted the Lancaster and opened fire from below, hitting the right wing that caught fire, as did the fuselage. The pilot ordered the crew of 7 to bail out. Nicholas' parachute was stored in the fuselage, as the small turret did not have space for it. Opening the door behind him, he was met with Dante's Inferno. Everything was burning. His parachute was on fire, and it was so hot that his oxygen mask started melting. He closed the door, but the fire made its way back. His clothes caught fire. Instead of burning to death, he swung his turret and jumped out. A better death, he thought. All was silent, only droning airplane engines could be heard. And then he woke up some hours later in a pine forest. Amazingly enough, he had survived with only a sprained ankle, some burns from the plane, and other bruises. Most likely the pine forest had dampened his fall, and the snow had helped to soften the impact. Taking a cigarette, he blew his whistle and was soon picked up by the Germans. Gestapo interrogated him and was first very suspicious about his story, but they later confirmed it. He managed to survive a 5,500 meter free fall. 2 other of his crew also made it down, but 4 died in the crash. Number 2. Alan McGee, US Air Force, 1943, from 6,700 meters. Alan McGee was a ball turret gunner on a B-17, nicknamed Snap, Crackle and Pop. In 1943 they took part in a bombing run against Saint Nazaire. Anti-aircraft fire was heavy, and the plane was hit, making his ball turret inoperable. So he climbed out, discovering that his parachute had a big hole in it. He started to make his way to the radio room when the plane was hit again, and finally a Focke-Wulf 190 shot off the wing, forcing the plane into a violent spin. McGee lost consciousness and was thrown out of the plane. He woke up for a short time as he was falling, hoping he would not die, and then he blacked out again. He hit the glass ceiling of the Saint Nazaire train station, which blunted his fall, before he finally hit the floor. He was found still alive, but not unhurt. His body was full of shrapnel. He had broken his leg, 1 arm was almost torn off, and he had a lot of internal injuries. He was treated, the doctors managed to save his arm, and he made a full recovery. He spent the rest of the war in a prisoner of war camp. 2 others of the crew also managed to bail out, but 7 died in the crash. Number 1. Ivan Shishov, Soviet Air Force, 1942, 6,700 to 7,000 meters. Ivan Shishov was a navigator on an Ilyushin 4 bomber. During a mission they were attacked by a German fighter and the crew was ordered to bail out. Unlike the other 2 entries, Ivan had a fully functioning parachute with him. The battle was going on all around him, and he was afraid that if he pulled the cord and deployed his parachute, some German pilot would shoot him. He planned to wait until he got under the battle and then pulled the cord. Unfortunately, the air was too thin, so he blacked out before he could pull the handle. Lucky for him, he struck the edge of a snowy ravine, which dissipated some of the impact, and then further sliding rolling down on the snow. Ivan survived but was seriously injured, still holding the cord of the parachute he never deployed. His spine was damaged, his pelvis was broken, and he had internal injuries. A small price to pay for living through 7,000 meters of free fall. He spent 3 months in hospital, then requested front-line duty again, but was sent instead as an instructor for the remainder of the war. The pilot survived of his plane, but the radio operator died. What happened to the gunner is uncertain. So these are the 3 most lucky persons who survived a fall without a parachute. I hope you liked the video. If you did, like and subscribe.